I think I could turn and live with animals. They are so placid and self-contained. I stand and look at them long and long. They do not sweat and whine about their condition. They do not lie awake in the dark and weep for their sins. They do not make me sick discussing their duty to God. Not one is dissatisfied, not one is demented with the mania of owning things. Not one kneels to another, nor to his kind that lived thousands of years ago. Not one is respectable or unhappy over the whole earth. So they show their relations to me, and I accept them. They bring me tokens of myself. They evince them plainly in their possession. I wonder where they get those tokens. Did I pass that way huge times ago and negligently drop them?
Good afternoon, children. I hope you had a great weekend and you all have submitted the activities that I have told you. So, children, today we are going to learn a poem by the name Animals, and it's a poem by Walt Whitman, and it is taken from his poetry collection Song of Myself in Leaves of Grass. So it's a very interesting poem. In this poem, Whitman compares man to animals. Have you ever compared yourself to animals? It seems quite funny, but let's find out what the poem is about. Okay, first of all, let me tell you about the author. Walt Whitman was born on 31st May 1819. He was an American poet, journalist, and humanist, and he was called the father of free verse. That means poetry without any rules and regulations. And his famous works are Leaves of Grass, Life and Adventures of Jack Ingle. Now, he died on 26 March 1892. So he's a very famous poet as far as modern American poetry is concerned. Okay, it's a very simple poem. Now let's move on to the poem. Children, remember to keep your textbooks open near you when you listen to the poem and its explanation. You can note down the difficult words and the meanings and all in your textbook itself. I think I could turn and live with animals. They are so placid and self-contained. I stand and look at them long and long. So children, the poet sees that human beings suffer from many faults. They lack in many virtues. The poet doesn't find their company enjoyable. Then he looks at animals. He sees that animals have many virtues that men lack so badly. He sees that animals remain calm and quiet. What do you mean by placid? Calm. And self-contained means quiet and not depending on the company of others. Animals are self-contained and don't depend on the company of others. These qualities of animals fill the poet with wonder. He stands near them and keeps looking at them for a long, long time. They do not sweat and whine about their condition. They do not lie awake in the dark and weep for their sins. They do not make me sick discussing their duty to God. Now the poet says that by comparing animals with human beings, the poet says that animals don't remain in a state of anxiety. They don't grumble. What do you mean by whine? Grumble over their condition. They don't spend their nights lying awake. They don't have sleepless nights. They don't have to weep over their sins in the dark. Animals are not at all bothered about the concept of sin. Animals don't commit any sins. So they don't have to weep in the dark. Weep means cry. They don't have to lie awake at night. Usually people keep talking about their duty to God, but they forget all about their duty to God's beings. That means fellow human beings. Such a talk makes the poet sick. He says that animals don't indulge in such hypocritical talks. So children, what do you mean by sweat? It means anxiety, and whine means grumble, Sick here means disgust, feeling bad. Now we are moving on to the next lines. No one is dissatisfied. Not one is dissatisfied. Not one is demented with the mania of owning things. Not one kneels to another, nor to his kind that lived thousands of years ago. Not one is regretful or unhappy over the whole earth. Now, children, you have some new words. What do you mean by demented? It means mad. Okay, mad. Demented means mad or extremely upset, we can say. And what do you mean by mania? It's an extremely abnormal desire. You are quite addicted. Okay. Now, what do you mean by that lived thousands of years ago? Actually, here is a reference to ancient gods, goddesses, saints, and prophets who are supposed to have lived thousands of years ago and whom people worship now. Okay, children? Now, let's listen to the explanation. Continuing with the comparison between animals and men, Whitman says that not even a single animal is dissatisfied with its condition. All are happy. On the contrary, every man remains forever dissatisfied and unhappy. Yes, that's the truth, isn't it? We are not at all happy with whatever we have and we get. There is not a single animal that is mad with the mania of owning things. But every man is mad in the race of possessing material things. Here the poet indirectly indicates the human tendency to possessions. Okay, we are very materialistic. Each and every time any new product comes in the market, we are busy after it, buying it and all. And the poet here makes fun of that and he is ridiculing us that we are having a mania. It's a disease, he is saying. Okay, we are having an abnormal desire of owning things. No animal has to kneel or bow to another. No one has to kneel before those of their kind who had lived thousands of years ago. Here also the poet is making fun of people who worship other human beings. Okay, we have the culture of worshipping the fellow human beings, actually the prophets, saints and all. Here the poet is satirizing those customs. Okay. And there is no animal who is sad or unhappy over the whole earth. No one is regretful because they have not committed any wrong or sin. So no one is unhappy, all are happy, and no one feels sad because of committing anything wrong. Okay, so these are the peculiarities that make Whitman prefer animals to man. He finds that animals are better than man in all these ways. So they show their relations to me and I accept them. They bring me tokens of myself. They evince them plainly in their possession. I wonder where they get those tokens. Did I pass that way huge times ago and negligently drop them? Now here we have a very interesting ending. Okay. So the poet sees that animals have the same qualities that he has. Okay, Walt Whitman, our poet, sees that he is having the same qualities as of animals. See, like him, they too look happy, calm and contented. Children, please note these three words: happy, calm and contented. Okay, contented means satisfied. Okay, so these are the qualities which both poet and animals share. There is much in the poet that corresponds with the nature of animals. Lot of similarities are there between the poet and animals. He says that actually the poet is wondering how these similarities occurred, how it happened, why he is so similar to animals. And he comes in a very funny conclusion. Okay, what is the conclusion, children? Okay, the poet says that he had perhaps passed that way a long time back and dropped some of his tokens. Okay, children, what do you mean by tokens? Signs. Okay, these are the signs which was already dropped by him on the way long back. And what the animals did? The animals picked up those tokens and kept them in their possession. The poet means to say that he shares with animals their simplicity, innocence, and contentment. Okay, children? So, note these words: simplicity, innocence, and contentment. Okay, these are the tokens, the signs that the poet has shared with animals. Okay, so the poet seems very funny, and the way the poet has presented, actually, it's a call for the readers to recollect their actions and compare it with animals. Okay, he has highlighted animals. The poet has given some prominence to animals than man in the poem. Now let's summarize the poem once again. All of you, please listen carefully. In this poem, Whitman compares man to animals. He finds that man lacks many virtues that animals have. What do you mean by virtues? Good qualities. Okay. He finds that animals remain so calm and quiet. We have the words placid and self-contained. Okay, use the words in the poem when you write the answers. They are self-contained. They have not to seek the help of anyone. They don't worry or grumble about their condition. They don't lie awake in the night, weeping over their sins. On the contrary, on the opposite, man forever remains unhappy. He keeps grumbling about his condition. He is never satisfied. He lies awake in the night, weeping over his sins. He keeps talking about his duty to God, but he never worries about his duty to God's men, to human beings. The poet says that animals don't make him sick with such hypocritical talk. The poet doesn't find even one animal that is dissatisfied. There is no animal that is mad with desire to own things. No animal has to kneel or bow to another of their kind. They are all equal and remain satisfied. The poet says that there is not a single animal on the whole earth that is unhappy or dissatisfied. The poet finds that animals have all those qualities that he has. Thus, they seem to be related to him. The poet humorously remarks that animals have perhaps picked those of his qualities, which are the qualities simplicity, innocence, contentment, which he had negligently robbed while passing by them long time back. Okay, children, read the poem 5 times. Watch the videos repeatedly. Any doubts? Ask me, message me, okay? Okay, children, so the poet finds that man lacks many virtues that animals have. The poet says that he feels more at home with animals than human beings. He feels happy in the company of animals, since they are selfish, false, and always dissatisfied. Okay, why the poet are not the poet is not happy with the company of human beings? Because they are selfish, false, and always dissatisfied, while the animals are unselfish, true, and more satisfied. They show their love for us. The poem Animals is written in irregular words or blank verse. Okay, children, please note down the word blank verse. This poem reflects Whitman's animism. Okay, it's a characteristic of his writing. It's called animism. A-N-I-M-I-S-M, animism. It is the spirit of animals that are meant to reflect the truth in humanity. Okay, what is animism? It is the spirit of animals that are meant to reflect the truth in humanity. Okay, children, so learn the poem well. Copy down the notes that is shared in your WhatsApp group. So see you all in the live session. Thank you. Have a nice day.
Here is the summary of the poem Animals by Walt Whitman. Whitman wants to live with animals. He believes, unlike humans, animals are calm and controlled creatures. He admires animals and believes he can look at them infinitely. In the next lines, Whitman corroborates this idea by listing different ways in which animals are different from human beings. Animals, unlike humans, do not complain about their life or situation. They do not cry over the sins committed by them. They also do not make the poet sick with their discussions on what is the right kind of duty to God. Animals, Whitman believes, are not dissatisfied creatures. They, unlike humans, do not get mad over their desires to own things. Animals do not subjugate oneself to another, nor do they bow and worship humans who had lived a long time ago. Animals, Whitman finally says, do not care about being respectable nor understand the concept of unhappiness. So, through the list of differences, Whitman is highlighting the self-imposed restrictions of humankind. The poet then expresses his acceptance of animals who show only their true selves to the poet. Through watching animals and their true selves, Whitman gathers pieces of himself which have been lost by living in the society. Whitman wonders how animals could possibly have pieces of himself. He wonders if he passed them by ages ago and carelessly dropped them. Thus, in the final 4 lines, Whitman explores the possibility that animals currently possess what humankind did at some point, natural virtues which have been lost as civilization progressed. It is also a reflection of how an individual loses his or her self when trying to conform to a society focused on appearances than natural human virtues. Now let us examine the literary elements from the poem Animals. In the poem, Whitman has generally personified animals. He provides them with the qualities of calmness and being in control. In the poem, the lines, "Look at them long and long. I wonder where they get those tokens," are examples of alliteration. Whitman uses this technique to explore the rhythms of natural spoken language. In the poem, the words "I," "they do not," and "not one" are examples of repetition. The poet uses repetition to strongly stress on the ways in which animals are unlike and therefore better than human beings. The poem Animals does not have a rhyme scheme since it is in free verse. The free verse is a trademark of Whitman's poetry. It was considered groundbreaking since it marked a break from traditional rhyming poetry that was prevalent during his time.